Thank you.
Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's January 31, 2026. I want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank Topanga Film Festival for introducing me to today's guest, Adam Noble Roberts. Where are you calling from, Adam?
At this moment, I'm in Rhinebeck, New York, snowy upstate New York. It's very Arctic here. And of course, we know each other from Topanga, where I live full time, but I'm on a trip.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being. I think it's to live authentically, to connect to their true nature and to express it during the course of their lifetime as fully as possible.
It's really beautiful. I love that. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
I think that my favorite form is actually when I quiet my mind and something comes to me that's one of those things that feels like it's from both the deeper place of my beings and at the same time from the great beyond. It's like the wisdom that had been forgotten gets reawakened,
It's really
reintroduced.
beautiful. Yeah, there's I think a Pascal quote that says, all the problems in the world would be solved if we could learn how to sit in solitude.
Yeah. Yes. Many of us were working on it for sure.
Yeah. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
That is so dependent on what their mission at hand is. I think that often it's to understand something better than they currently understand it. So yeah, to further understand would be my quick answer.
Yeah. And is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think it's innate to our survivor selves. In order to survive, you need to understand what you're dealing with, and so you would gather information. I think it grew. I think it is expanded in terms of course, the ways in which we do it. But yeah, I would say it's innate more than what was the other option?
Invented, like
yeah. I think it evolved, right? But certainly, it was innate in the first place.
Yeah, you get it. Because see, it's really me and you versus the wording on the questions. And I like when people go, well, I don't like your verb, or let me change it to evolve. Because I'm for tangents, stories, anecdotes. In other words, you don't have to answer the question. They're just prompts. Yeah. And that was good. Do thoughts create emotions?
I think thoughts trigger emotions. I think they activate emotions. I think they can make emotions stronger or weaker. But I don't think they're generally the creators of them.
Yeah. Again, really good. I love you change. Okay. Fill in the blank, Adam. I don't know what I think until I.
I don't know what I think until I experience the I don't know what I think until I really am present with the thing that's being thought about. It's funny because it's almost, I don't know what I think until I stop thinking about it.
Oh, that is good. I don't know if I've ever had that until I stop thinking. But you really countered it with present.
Yeah.
But you put the word experience, because that a lot of people go, I don't know what I think until I experience it. Okay, that's good. Now say that again, until I stop thinking.
I don't know what I think until I stop thinking about it.
About it, yeah. That's
whatever the
key.
case may be. And that's
Yeah.
because that's when you're anchored in the present, you're
Yeah.
not stuck in your thoughts.
Yeah.
And then that's a kind of way of filtering out all the noise.
Yeah. It's really good. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Yeah,
Can
those make sense to me as well.
Yeah. Can humans think without language?
Yeah, there's some kind of thought. It's I would say it's a different form of thinking, right? Because of course we do think linguistically. We have thoughts that come as words, but there's other levels of thinking that are definitely taking place for us. It all depends on how you define thinking, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I think that we have this interesting, intertwining system, but you have realizations that then occur as thoughts, right? Almost like I was saying a minute ago,
Yeah.
that came from somewhere other than your thinking process, and yet
Yeah.
they've produced a thought.
Yeah.
So I think there's some levels of thinking processes taking place that are non-linguistic for sure.
Really good. You're articulate and concise. I appreciate it, because I'm going to go back, because I hardly ever ask this because it's stupid. But is thinking more innate or more invented? Don't think too hard about
I was
it.
feeling into it. I thinking is innate to humans.
Yeah.
Again, it's evolved and developed and taken many different forms, but it is very much part of the fabric of how we operate as sentient beings.
But look at what you did, Adam. You like overcame the human condition, or I don't know, overcame, but you reinvented it by saying, yeah, it's innate, but I think when I stop thinking.
Right.
So that it really reminds me of McLuhan's great line: carefully make plans, then do the opposite.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
But let me say, oh, no, and I have a whole bunch of quotes about thinking. They apply here. The
Well,
Marx
I'm gonna stop thinking about that. Yeah.
Say it again.
Allow me to stop thinking about that so I can answer you. Right.
Yeah. The Marx Brothers are in a jam and they go, we got to think. And the other one goes, we already tried that. And George Clinton says, think, it ain't illegal yet. You know,
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing you saying until we stop thinking about it. I'm going to use that tomorrow in my big James Joyce salon. That was really good. So Chomsky says language is not just words. It's culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
What so when language breaks down, first of all, I agree with Chomsky, right? And so that means, implicit to that is if language breaks down, that means that the culture's breaking down, because now we're having difficulty being on the same page and communicating. I think my number one go-to when the language is breaking down is to listen.
Yeah.
To do my best to understand, because what I've discovered in my personal experience is a mistake that's often made, that I've certainly made, is doing my best to be understood, which is a big mistake. The most useful thing you can do is do your best to understand.
Yeah. It's amazing, man. You really get it. I mean, that's McLuhan's main two words is understanding relationship. The thing to think how two things are working and trying to understand it. I love your emphasis on that word. So your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
It's funny, I was writing earlier today and this was kind of a piece of it. I think I said something to the effect, or wrote something to the effect of, you trust your feelings more than your thoughts. I think that we're both. It's a both
Yeah,
and.
yeah,
We're definitely feelers and thinkers. There's no escaping
yeah,
either. I think that we have a lot of thinkers that need to learn to feel better, and a lot of feelers that need to learn to think better. And it's almost like if there was a chart, you know, you got your X horizontal, your Y vertical, and you're kind of going up. We sometimes err towards overthinking, sometimes over feeling. You know, it's a balance, and I think the ones that integrate the two well are the ones that end up being geniuses, right? Whether you're talking about Einstein or Martha Graham or whoever, it's people who, you know, they because feel also intuition and insights, right? That comes through the feeling place, and then you utilize your ability for critical thinking to put it to work, and that's why you have, you know, certain geniuses. So you need both. You need both, and I think both are very much, yeah, I think it's a 50-50 all in all.
no, I really like it because sometimes people go, I'm not into binaries. I was like, well, it doesn't matter. I say, is it more? And I'm not. I know it's both. I sometimes counter. I says, I know this is a stupid question. I know it's both, and it depends. But
Uh-huh.
you know, it's fine to say. One at a lecture once, I this guy says, is it more this or more that? And he goes, it's both. And the other woman next to him says, that's a cop out. Like she wanted him to say one or the other instead of
Yeah.
saying both. It's
Yeah.
not a cop out to say both because you anticipated. Well, first of all, Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? And people who meditate go, okay, now think about not thinking, you know? So that's like, you didn't say think about not thinking. You said until I stop thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in my experience of meditation, as someone who does it, it's the the thoughts are happening almost independently,
yeah,
right? And it's the I think the sort of the key with meditation, or the gift of meditation, is to realize that the thoughts aren't you. You stop identifying with them, so they continue, but then you're able to start occupying the space between them,
yeah,
realize that you are the place from which they're coming, but you aren't them.
yeah,
And I think I think that is what we all basically need more of, is to
yeah.
sort of be in that more centered, rested place. The thoughts will continue for sure.
That's what McLuhan called that space between is
Yeah.
the resonating interval. He said the gap is where the action is. That's where it's all, that's where it is happening. So,
Yeah.
and you nailed it because most people, are we more thinking or more feeling? Most people say, I think we're more feeling. They literally say that.
Right.
So
Right.
then there's a bumper sticker on a car on my street and it says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
Yeah. E exactly. I mean, uh, but I think a lot of the issues with, not with feeling is how the thoughts that we apply to it, because we have strong feelings sometimes, right? But then we try to make sense of it, and I think that's where we end up, you know, making more questionable choices. Um, but it's important to allow for those feelings, right?
Yeah.
Because we, you know, as someone who, you know, as a coping mechanism was a thinker, right, as a child and so forth, uh, I tried to like tamp down the uncomfortable feelings, but we of course discover that's called repression, and then you find yourself in a whole other predicament. Uh, but you have to then you do have to kind of think through them once you start feeling them, and allowing those feelings, especially the uncomfortable ones, to rise. Then it's a whole other effort to determine what are the thoughts that are um, actually grounded in some sort of wisdom, some sort of deeper understanding, as opposed to, you know, for example, blaming, like, oh, she broke my heart, right? It's like, no, she actually activated the pain that I've been carrying all along, right?
So well put.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Well,
that's causality. Yeah, that's so well put. That's causality. Okay, these are two Turing questions from the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
um, hmm. I don't know that it's a function of the soul. I think that the soul has a relationship to the thoughts that come. You know what I'm going to say is there's a whole other level of thinking that belongs to the soul. So I'm going to say yes, but it's not thinking as we think it.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Because I mean, the real literate, rational people go, no, thinking's a function of the mind, not the soul. And then people go, no, well, the soul and the mind. How do you separate the body, soul, and mind? They're all intertwined. It's just like thinking and feeling. We can't separate them, but we think we can because we invented the words thinking and feeling.
That's right. We're just trying to get some sort of level of understanding. But, as they say, words can only point to the deeper truths. They can
Yeah.
never actually capture them all the way. But things like beautifully written, like poetry, somehow creates a music to it that can invoke the truth. But the words are always going to fall short on their own. So it's the same. It's the same, right? We will not be able to capture how a soul thinks, but there's some kind of thinking, in my opinion, in my sort of spiritual orientation, that the soul has the capacity for.
Yeah. I love Lily Tomlin said, reality is just a collective hunch. I like that. That's what words are. They're a collective hunch. People, when I go, is thinking a function of the soul? They go, I don't know what the soul is. I goes, come on, you kind of know. I mean, we all know kind of what we think the word soul means. So we all go along collectively, kind of with dictionary or whatever,
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other interesting, avenue to walk down, because that does, when you start talking about soul, it gets into that realm where it does become very personal, or like you have your personal take. We have a general understanding, but then that's kind of like, what is divine, or what is God, right? It's becomes everyone has their own sort of take. Some people are indoctrinated and then they free themselves from that indoctrination, but then it's like we're all working on it. It's like a work in progress of understanding our entire lives. But I myself feel a strong sense of the existence of soul.
Yeah. It's like
Michael,
George.
you know Michael Mead, who that is? Michael Mead,
Who is
Michael Mead is he's a multi-hyphenate, but he's a mythologist, and I guess you could call him a kind of philosopher. To me, he's like somewhere along. He was very connected to the men's movement. He and Robert Bly were buddies.
Okay.
But Michael's still around, kind of a wise elder that we have. He's written many books as well, but he does a whole thing where he distinguishes between soul and spirit and explains the difference. And I found his distinction to be very intriguing, essentially saying the soul is sort of the spiritual essence that is connected to the earth, your life on earth. It's very connected to your purpose and mission on earth, and the spirit is kind of more ethereal. But I feel like, and this is my own thing, but it's almost like the soul, the spirit, and then your corporal body are like our own personal holy trinity.
Oh, you mean soul, spirit, and body? That's the Trinity?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say that. That's
good.
kind of my own take on it.
But you added, that's good.
Yeah.
That's Holy Trinity. Yeah. No, I'll look them up. I appreciate that. I'm always interested in those kind of thinkers.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah, the second term. In fact, I was going to say it reminded me of George Carlin saying, "How could we ever have a civil war?" Now you can, because civil means between two cities, but mostly people think civil is acting kind to each other.
Right.
So that's the fun thing. I mean, it really is catching people on the tricks of words. So the second Turing question is, can machines think?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. It does. I would say machines process and are. yeah, it's a more of a processing than a thinking that they're doing. But gosh, it's we don't really know what the exact potential is for artificial intelligence, right? We 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 don't know, we don't know what we are, right? Really. So I mean, we could just be another kind of technology ourselves, I I I would say, in my experience of um, the current reality we live in and what machines are, in my interpretation, they're not thinking in the sense of the way a human thinks.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. And
yeah.
that's like they asked AI, "Oh, answer this question. And by the way, I hope you have a good weekend." And the AI responded and says, "I don't process that kind of comment."
Yeah.
Well, that was processing it. That's like you did process, like you said. But I think it's like it's our job to raise AI well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's in its early stages, so I understand why people are freaking about it. But okay, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I pursue meaning as a means to happiness.
Yeah.
Mm, I I think that there is no happiness without meaning. It's just you know moments. You can have light moments where you've let go, but if you want any kind of sustaining happiness, and maybe I'm talking about something deeper than happiness, but I don't think so. I think happiness captures that, the essence of like uh a life that feels worth living, right? If you feel happy, and you have to have a sense of meaning, I feel, otherwise you'll fall into despair just as easily as you fell into happiness. Whereas when you are faced with challenging circumstances, if you have meaning, then those circumstances might be difficult, but they can't take that inner spark of happiness and meaning that you have. Whereas without meaning, you know, when tragedy befalls, now it's just tragedy. You don't have it. You don't have anything to hold on to. So so meaning first, and everything kind of is born out of that from there.
Yeah, because I got it from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and he says happiness doesn't tend to last and meaning tends to last.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I just think meaning is and you it's a process, right? You still even because there's deeper layers of each, deeper layers of meaning. You kind of find something that is uh, in your core that is true through life, and then you can kind of build on it. And again, I think true happiness is born out of that. And without it, you can't really build true happiness. And yeah, it's more fleeting for sure.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I'm gonna go with we're more detecting it. I think we're almost like antennae,
Yeah.
our brains, and that consciousness, because there is a kind of common human hubris to think that we're creating everything. And in fact, I think there is consciousness all around us in this universe or multiverse, and we pick up on some of it, and we have our own little, pocket of it. But 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 there's so much more going on, and in fact, the more we learn, we don't really know how to use our brains either. Our brains are these kind of organic computers that we're not fully functioning. It's like me with my phone. There's so many cool things you can do with it. I don't do it because it's like I haven't done my homework on it, right? I do plenty of things, right? I do the essentials, but it's like same with our brains. What's they used to say, I don't know if they still say it, but we use like 10% of our brains or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
Uh, and I think that has to do with not really understanding the hardware as much as we could and its capacity to probably pick up all kinds of other levels of consciousness, certainly there's generation going on as well. That's part of the the ability of the advanced organ that is our brains. But I think there's a lot more than our wee brains in this universe.
Yeah, well, you're using your ESP powers because you anticipated with the word antenna a question that's coming up three down the line. So there you
Okay.
go.
Well,
You're, the proof is in the pudding, Adam.
it's the pudding, Jerry. That's exactly.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Mm. I'm gonna say that they can be one and the same. There's many kinds of light out there and in here. So yeah, yeah, that's oh man, that's impossible to answer. But they're more connected than we think. Let's just put
Yeah,
it that way.
I agree. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Her colleague, Yvonne Rainer, said, "Oh, you can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
Hmm. Well, I think that there's truth to that kind of scenario you laid out there with the two of them. The new tool, I would say, is the essential tool, because the new tool is something that is born out of the moment's need, and also, kind of connects to what we were just discussing, that there are a whole bunch of tools we're not using yet.
Yeah.
And so, it reminds me of when I met John Trudell. John Trudell, the
Yes.
active
Yes.
American AIM. I think he was part of AIM, American Indian Movement. Um, and I happened to get the chance to meet him in 2004, I think, in Venice. And at that time, right, we had the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan going, and we were discussing activism and such. And this is why in 2024, actually, this was the inspiration for naming our theme for the film festival in 2024. The revolution will be improvised, right?
Yes.
That was inspired by the conversation I had with John Trudell, because John said, uh, the tools for activism and revolution that we used in the 60s and 70s, he's like, those are not the same tools that we can use today. It has to be
Yeah.
things that haven't been done before. That's the only way you're effective, because then there isn't a playbook for managing it.
Yeah.
And I think there's just that always stuck with me, and I think that speaks to the answer to your question. It's the tools that haven't been discovered that are the most customized and perfect, and also can't be foreseen by those who would try to keep the oppressive house in place.
It's a really good point. It's we talked about it yesterday. WTO in Seattle happened because the government didn't know the potential of the internet. So they got the anarchist with the working class, and it kicked ass. And then from that point on, then they go, okay, if you want to protest, there's a fenced in area over there. You go over there now. And they weren't, it lost its effectiveness.
Yeah.
And it's like what's happening in Minneapolis. They follow ICE trucks and peep, and they're trying to invent, let's just like you said, on the spot, new tools. And that's what you have to. Your point is so well taken. There's this other really brilliant guy I had on a couple times, and he said, the next question is, what's a toy? So a lot of people don't understand that question because I say new tool. And basically what I'm asking for is, what's the tool you most gravitate towards?
Mm-hmm.
And you articulate it so well. It's the one that the environment causes me to invent.
Yeah.
And so then the next question is going to be, what's a toy you gravitate towards? Because I ask people all this tool question, and guy goes, well, what about a toy? And he either answered it to the tool or the toy. He says, when you're walking down the path with your kids and they pick up a stick and turn it into something. It's the toy is whatever comes upon your path as you're walking along in life.
Yeah. Wait, so are
So
you
I'm sorry I kind of answered the toy thing for you if you want to apply the same formula.
what's the
But
toy
I'll
you
ask you anyways, what's a toy you gravitate towards?
yeah. I mean, I think in theory, it's whichever one brings the most pleasure,
Yeah.
uh, and spirit of play in the moment. And indeed, it could be a a stick, especially if you are with your child or a kid, something
Yeah.
that sort of activates that spirit of play. And indeed, I think. God, I think that is also a key to having the tools that are effective, the ones that do help to activate that playful spirit, because somehow in the face of kind of, you know, darkness, a playful creativity is extremely helpful. And that was something that was so used, by the in the 60s. You think of like the Yippies and all, and those guys, like they were so playful. They were super intelligent, but also brought a really kind of guerrilla theater playfulness to their activism. And I think that as we uh, kind of navigate these difficult times, we have to make sure that sort of playful spirit isn't quelled in the face of it. We need to keep that alive and nourish that. So whichever toy helps me stay playful is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So well put. What year were you born?
I was born in 1978.
78. Yeah, because that's Abby Hoffman said his biggest influence was McLuhan.
Mm.
And McLuhan and Warhol both said art is anything you can get away with. And he
Yeah.
said revolution is anything you can get away with.
Right.
If we're going to throw money at the stockbrokers and they're going to go, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to try everything, guerrilla theater.
Yeah.
But, here's a move. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say they were amazing in terms of just how just free they were in their efforts, and I think that we do lack that in this time. I think that we do need to activate more of that intelligent, playful creativity, and could borrow that. It just has to be the 21st century version.
Yeah.
And you have to take care of yourself, because the thing is, facing, this is where I myself am still kind of, I don't know, I think on some level hide, is because facing that kind of foe, it gets intense, right? And there is and people, Abby Hoffman killed himself ultimately, right? It became a lot to manage, I think, inside of his psyche and many others. So you really have to find that way of being wild and adventurous and purposeful and meaningful and empathetic and knowing what is motivating you, and then having a way to kind of have a sanctuary space to take care of yourself and just yeah, do self-care, honestly.
Self-care is I love when that word comes up. That
Yeah.
is a great word. And two things. It's like, yeah, these people now, the protesters dress up in like a giraffe outfit or a green outfit,
Yeah.
and it's blown up. How could you beat the shit out of that? They still beat the shit out of them. And that could flips to another rock star who influenced me a lot, Frank Zappa. He says, you got to love the cops as they beat the shit out of you on the street. It's like, good luck.
Apparently, yes. I mean, that's something to aspire to. It's very difficult, right? But by the way, I did love that. Seeing the giraffes and the animal costumes. It's because it's a real expression of being nonviolent, right? And
playful, like a little kid's Halloween costume or something, like But this is, have you seen or know about the Eno documentary? It came out maybe a half a year ago or a year ago. You might consider it, Adam. Every screening is different. They send a DCP up into the cloud and re-edit it for every screening. So That is, to me, an amazing thing. Whether the film is good or bad, I don't
Right.
care.
That's
I
very
mean,
cool.
it can't be that bad, because here's the line, he put out a book called What Art Does. And here's the line that you evoked with that word play.
Mm-hmm.
Play is how children learn. Art is how adults play.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That is like,
Where did you?
well,
What line is that? The
say
plays
it again.
how? Who? Where did you hear that particular quote? Do you know?
That is Eno in
That's Eno.
I think he says it in the movie and in his book, What Art Does.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah. And so, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Hmm. Oh man. Well, I do my best to let it all go when it's like this is the time to just let it go. But of course, they still work themselves out, the worries in the sleep state. But I think if I were to answer it honestly, it's um if I am showing if I showed up as fully as I could that day, or if I
Yeah,
fell down on the job.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Which is a big struggle. You
yeah,
want to have slack. You
yeah,
want to know nothing really matters, but at the same time, everything matters. So you want to show up 100%. But could
yeah,
I have a little slack in showing up 100%?
yeah,
Find that balance. Good luck.
yeah.
And
It's
just don't beat yourself up.
exactly it's that dance of being kind to oneself while also holding oneself accountable. It's
Yeah.
it's not an easy world, right? But also sometimes I'm a lazy piece of shit. Or too easily distracted or what have you. So, yeah, I think that sometimes that can weigh on me. That maybe I was uh, not diligent enough on that day with
Yeah.
sense of what I should be.
Totally, totally agree. I go through that all the time, especially because I'm addicted to YouTube. And it's like
Uh,
when YouTube came out, I told my friends and I wouldn't watch it for 15 years. It
uh,
came out. It came out. Front page of New York Times. It says rare Parliament Funkadelic video is on a computer. And I'm like, that's the fucking coolest. So I
yeah,
told my friends, and my friend called me up. He says, "Why'd you tell me about this? I went down a rabbit hole for 2 hours."
right.
And I'm not going there. For 15 years, I would kind of stay away. Now it's just like, and I think, oh, you're getting the news and playful stuff. And
Yeah,
then it's like, yeah, well, lighten up, dude. You're fucking addicted. You're an idiot.
yeah. It is what do you do? That's YouTube is also my son's hole, his rabbit hole of choice. He got off Instagram. My son, he's 19, almost 20, and
Yeah.
he took himself off Instagram. He's like, nope, but he's still he rides the waves in YouTube, and it's the same thing. I mean, he grew up in this age, right? He was born 2006, and uh he learned a lot from YouTube, right? He
It's
still
that.
yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's amazing, right? But it's also we again, it kind of comes back to what I was talking about earlier about my favorite place or favorite way to gather information. It's from within, right? When I get to a still place, when I've quieted the mind, because that's where the most valuable information bubbles up from, or sort of a deeper place than all of the stuff that we can produce via technology or anywhere else. But that said, of course, I am a cinephile, and I love nothing more than a beautifully told story in a film.
Exactly. And we grew up with TV, and
Yeah,
there's no difference between YouTube and TV. It's the same thing. But
oh,
I mean, it is like, TV, you were more obliged. Oh, I'm going to watch a 30-minute show. So then
right.
you watch 30 minutes. Now, after 2 seconds, I'm like, nope, next.
Yeah,
It's like, and I'm fine with that. I'm like, boy, I can be more discerning now. I
yeah.
just, that other Saragossa manuscript. Have you ever seen that film? It's Louis Buñuel's and Jerry Garcia's favorite film.
That's right. I have not seen it. I've
And
heard of.
it's 3 hours, and I
Uh-huh.
type in today, and the whole thing's on YouTube free with really good subtitles, and I was like, then I send it to my friend that says must see film. Then
Yeah.
will I ever go and watch it? Is the
Yeah.
big thing. I know I've had a DVD of it on my shelf for years, and I still never watched it. And I'm like, wow, I should at least try it a
Well,
little.
this, Jerry, this is why I am such a, proponent of the theatrical experience, because
Yeah.
as much as I watch films at home, there's nothing like being in a darkened auditorium, a theater with, hundreds of other people taking it in
Exactly.
and kind of having that sort of shared experience. It just is
Yeah.
such a different thing. And all the better if you have someone. I love it when someone introduces the film and has a little something they can tell me about it as well. Right. But it's a whole kind of storytelling ceremony. It's much closer to sitting around the fire. It's like if you take the analogy further, right? If you sit at the fire and there's one storyteller and you, that's something, right? But if the whole tribe's there, it really adds meaning to the experience of taking in the story. And I think that we shouldn't underrate that. So the Saragossa manuscript, you would probably love to see it in a theater.
Oh, that's where I would, yeah. But the thing is that we grew up knowing that experience. Your kid probably didn't grow up going and look. I mean, maybe you taught them that. And I know my friends who have kids, they try to teach them the ritual of going to the film.
Yeah.
But, and so they learn it a little. But most people my age and your age never go to films anymore. Never. Yeah. They go, oh, I went to one 5 years. I went to the Dylan Timmy Azimi film. Like, they'll go once and it's like, I get it.
To me, it's a tragedy. And yeah, for the record, I did raise my son taking him to films, and he loves it too. So it's one of the facets of storytelling that he really does enjoy.
And he bonded with you through a commonality.
Yeah, it's one of our pastimes together for sure. We love to go see films together, but it's an art form. It's an approach to receiving an art form that I hope we don't lose. And I think, the way I'm going, right? This is I guess this is a classic thing of getting older, but it also has to do with just the thrust of our society just hurling itself forward. I think more and more that I value things that invite us to slow down, and to go and be more intentional. And so to go, to go to the theater, to do the thing, it's all an intentional act. That I think puts you in a state of receiving it in a more sophisticated way. Even by the way, it can still be a silly movie, right? I gathered a group to see the new Naked Gun movie because I was like, I think it's going to be funny, and it was, right. And there we were in an auditorium full of people laughing their asses off. Amazing. The comedies are so much better in a theater, right? If they're good comedies. So. It's one of many things that I hope we realize. Oh, this has value for us as a people.
Look at this line. I'm going to use it in my James Joyce salon tomorrow. It's Mel Brooks.
There you go.
In The Producers, the film that never got Oscar nominated. Comedies never got Oscar nominated for best screenplay. Producers did.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen to this line. This line is in The Producers. Gene Wilder, I think, says it. I want everything I've seen in the movies. That is when you really think about that line, like if Warhol said, we learn everything we do from movies. We learn how to kiss, how to litter, how to drive a car, how to dress. We turn to the movies, I mean, for certain generations to teach how to be human. But he's saying, I want everything I've seen in the movies, and he's producing a play that's supposed to be a flop. So it's and it is a movie of guys doing theater.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh God, it's infinite. It's like a two mirrors reflecting back and forth. Uh, that's brilliant. And yeah, that does point to, one of the the foibles of over celebrating what we see on the screen, right? Because it's not real, right? And it doesn't work out that way, right? It's there. I mean, and there's any number of, it all depends on who's telling the tale and what's been written. But I mean, God, I for sure, I still to this day, if I'm watching a certain film, I'm watching like a Bogart film or something, like, I'm like, I want a whiskey and a smoke, about it.
Yeah.
That looks so good,
Did you say it's like two mirrors talking to each other?
Yeah. When you were
Do you
talking,
know that's my oldest joke I start all my lectures with, and I forgot about it, and I just found it recently. What did one mirror say to the other mirror? It's all done with people.
oh, that's hilarious. I love
Because that's what it is. It's all done. It's all done with us. And
Yeah.
the other tangent I love to talk, the tangent I love to talk, Harry Smith gave a lecture on how Bruno invented cinema, and said, Bruno's that guy they burned at the stake, and he invented cinema because the purpose of cinema is to put you to sleep. And that's funny, because what he's saying, I think, is more in line with what Yoko Ono said, is if you dream a dream alone, it's a dream. If you dream a dream with other people, it's reality. So when we're in the movie theater watching The Naked Gun and we're all laughing together, that's reality. That doesn't, it appears like, that's not real. No, that's real. That is a real experience, making you laugh for real with your fellow people. So it becomes reality. The flip is, it's a horrible flip, but the kid jumps up on the stage in Colorado during the Batman screening and mows down people with a gun.
Yeah.
And so then the people who didn't die in the movie theater come back to this is the reality. They come back to the movie theater a week later and say, I want to see the rest of the movie. It's like, how could you ever want to go to a movie again?
Yeah,
that would be, but they're like, no, I want to see the rest of the movie. I got screwed out of seeing this movie.
Is that a real thing that happens?
That's a real thing that happens. So I mean, you wonder, well, people want to get paid their $10 to see their movie, or $20. They want to see the whole thing, no matter what happened. But that is a tragic thing. And they're like sitting there, what is this, a performance art piece? No, those are real bullets, and the guy next to me just died.
Yeah, I mean, so intense and so tragic. I have a hunch, if I had been in that terrible circumstance, it would have taken me a while to get back to the movies. But the ones who did come back, I can understand the impulse, almost like, I don't want you to take away.
You don't,
exactly. Right?
That's what, I don't want to take, I love going to the movies. That was horrible, but I'm going to get over it and I'm going to return to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh.
Heavy duty. So here's the one you anticipated.
Okay.
You have ESP, Adam. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. That's what you said. They're antenna. Dylan says that. I'm just an antenna, and they're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so that we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I ask you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, who are we in this scenario? I think that
it can be like, some people ignore it. Maybe me and you don't so much, but in general, why do some people ignore what artists are really saying. Sometimes artists don't even know what they're really saying.
That's right. Yeah.
But if there's some sort of deeper meaning and they're revealing something more important than the surface meaning of the art, why do some people ignore that deeper meaning?
I think because it's inconvenient. There's a lot of money on not receiving that message, and
Yeah.
we live in this, what's the term people use, late stage capitalism, right? This is not a system that is designed for the benefit of all,
Yeah.
and but those who it does benefit, and or those who feel they are benefiting, or are simply comfortable, or perceive themselves to be comfortable, aka are afraid of change and afraid of an alternative approach to navigating the society we live in, and the civilization. They're scared, right? It's like the message is, this isn't working at all, and we're killing each other and the planet that's essential, right? It's like the Al Gore documentary from 20 years ago, An Inconvenient Truth, right? It's too inconvenient to receive the message, because then we'd have to change, and that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I think that also is another piece to it, is change is a lot of work. And in fact, a lot of us have an ideal for what could be for the experience of humankind, and the potential that we're not exploring, if only we would get over all of our conflicts. But the fact is, to achieve that kind of collective potential, we have to address our own flaws as individuals. We have to actually grow and change as individuals. And again, it's hard work. So when someone else just says, "No, you're great as you are, and I'm going to represent you," right? People are like, "Great," right? It's like, "Great, I don't have to face my shit." Uh, Granted, that's I'm riding first class, on a train to hell. Uh, it'd be better to ride coach, to heaven. But we haven't figured that out yet collectively. So until we realize that, change and growth are hard but good, we're going to keep ignoring the artists who are delivering, the basically the wisdom about what we're doing.
Adam, you're really a wise person, and you're articulate, because I'm really loving this conversation. I'm learning so much. I appreciate it.
Oh
And
man.
it spawned another thing, because what you do with your film festival, and it is like one of the coolest film festivals in the world, and I appreciate it. You guys booked me a couple times there.
Yeah.
Just doing my workshop there, I was like, I don't want to show a film, I just want to talk. They're like, what? Can't you show a clip or something? No, let them watch the clip at home, which is the opposite. But loving film, the cool thing about film is you watch the film, and then after the film, that's where the real joy is. You got to talk about it and what it spurred. So Inconvenient Truth is such a great example. 200 people are packed in the Lemley Theater in Santa Monica, watching in an afternoon screening. And Al Gore's up there, and he goes, "Yeah, and we know the civil rights movement worked." And I yell out, "Bullshit." And everybody's like, "Oh my God," because we know that it worked to a point.
Yeah.
We don't have separate water fountains now, but you still get busted driving while black. So I don't want to encourage people to yell shit out at movie theaters, but every once in a while I'll do it. And it was stunning. And my friend told me the thing about that film was a good example of the effectiveness of political documentaries, which were really starting to bubble up a lot then.
Right.
Who Killed the Electric Car? My friend goes, Who Killed the Electric Car was a little more hard hitting, so it reached less people. Inconvenient Truth was a little more lightweight, so it reached more people. So which one do you want to do? So it was like an amazing phenomenon to study how effective agenda docs can be.
Yeah. And I mean, that conundrum continues. But I guess in the end, you just have to listen. I have so much respect for anyone who gets a film made. So if you make the one that you're moved to make, and you do your best, and that is your calling. It's your sense of meaning, your sense of purpose. You follow that. There's, sure, the money people will think about the other details, and then it's like, okay, if that's how much I can get for mine, then I'll work with that. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of how we all have to go with it. It's just like trust your inspiration and sense of purpose, and then let the chips fall where they may. And every once in a while, things blow up in ways that no one could have predicted. So it's
all the heavies. Pennebaker, Maisels, they were all pissed at Michael Moore. And it was like, give me a break. He raised the bar on your genre way up. You don't have to agree with his style or his message, but don't diss him like that. And they did, and that's all right, because Jean-Luc Godard went up to Michael Moore at the Cannes Film Festival and says, dude, your film's going to help Bush get elected. Now, it didn't help Bush get elected per se, but it galvanized pro-Bushers.
Right.
You're not responsible. Once you make your art, people can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, you referenced Dylan, and he was the classic example of someone who didn't really want to take responsibility.
Oh no.
but that was intelligent. He was, I think I think it was a survival kind of thing of his, this is my perception, but he clearly was articulating what was going on at the time, unlike most anyone. Like he was a singular voice and quote, the voice of a generation, but he was just letting it through. And then he's like, that's not really, because it gets really sticky, and he knew that it could gum up the works of his creativity, but that's also just how he operated there. Someone else that they might be inherently, like coming to mind is Chuck D from Public Enemy. Like he's a super articulate political guy, or Killer Mike, right? Killer Mike, Run the Jewels. I've seen him on talk shows and interviews. The guy is super articulate. His music is exceptionally political, but he as an individual is very political and very politically informed. So it's just everybody's different.
Yeah.
You got to trust your creativity. If you're a creator, you got to just do whatever serves it. And that alone is a revolutionary act, by the way. We don't have enough people being creative and like responsive to their creative impulse. And that comes back to your point about people learning to sit in solitude. It's like, that's where you get still and can kind of decolonize your mind from all of the stuff that's being, put upon us and colonizing us psychically.
Yeah. No, give credit where credit is due. You came up with the solitude first, and then I reinforced it with Pascal's quote. But I agree with you. It doesn't matter who comes up with it first. It's just that we got the point out.
Yeah,
that's good. But Dylan's funny because, Masters of War. I mean, he kicked ass with the lyrics and everything, being the antenna. And then he's like, don't blame me. And then they asked him once, because we do a Dylan event every year, and it's really amazing. A bunch of white whining dudes. It's like, no white whining, please. And the first thing I go, is Dylan overrated? And everybody looks at me, what do you mean is he overrated? That's why we're here. But they asked Dylan, well, how do I learn about, do you recommend anything to learn about the 60s? What happened in the 60s? He goes, read McLuhan. He literally said that. And that's pretty heavy. And then he wrote a song in like 2009. And he says in a lyric, I'm reading James Joyce. And it was like all us Joyceans went like, fucking A. And then the guy in Rolling Stone said, why did you write that line? Like, meaning, were you reading Joyce? And he goes, because it rhymed with the other line.
Yeah.
Now that's a perfect weaseling out of it,
Which is, and that's classic Bob Dylan right there. And he probably, the thing is, it probably was because it rhymed, and
It is. I'm not saying it isn't, but it is also, you still, because there's another quote from years ago where he says, "Yeah, I read a little of Ulysses. Joyce is arrogant. It sucks." It's like, yeah, well, that's a no-brainer. But the funniest is that guy who he wrote a novel in Japan, and Dylan read the novel when he was touring Japan, and he just ripped off like 2 lines from the novel and put them in his song. And then it took Dylanologists like 20 years to figure that out. And so then it was revealed. And then the author of the Japanese novel was asked, he goes, "What do you think about this?" And he goes, "My book is selling a lot now." It was not like I'm going to sue him. It was just like, fucking A.
I love that perspective. That's someone, I think that's the kind of my attitude as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what my book is selling better. Just take it holistically. Don't be a dick.
It's also my favorite is Oscar Wilde saying everything's in public domain.
Yeah.
You don't own anything, but anyways, Okay, so now it leads to the follow-up question to the antenna is, do artists have moral obligation?
I think the moral obligation is to being in integrity with themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's where our morality really springs from. Of course, there's universal understanding of basic morals and ethics, right? Of it's not cool to hurt other people, right? But of course, artists emotionally can hurt other people in order to tell the truth about something. So it becomes a slippery slope. But in terms of physical harm, that type of thing, right? We would hopefully have that shared understanding. But fundamentally, their obligation is to serve their art and that the truth of their being and be in integrity with that. That's where the moral obligation is. They can't be asked to. You can't serve everybody, right? It's like you're and this is something that as someone who enjoys finding common ground with as many people as possible, and is sensitive to when I don't, when somebody maybe doesn't dig me or whatever. The artist part of me has to just come to terms with that. It's like once you put yourself out there, you're going to have people who find you immoral, right? Who claim you're immoral, while others find you might literally save a life, right? And that's from the same work of art. So that's why the moral responsibility is to their own truth, and then the rest is not your business. There's a quote that I came across recently. I'll paraphrase from Vonnegut, and Vonnegut just said everyone should do some sort of art, whatever your art form that you're drawn to is, whether it's writing or dancing or acting or singing. He said everyone should do it because it grows your soul. And he said what happens after that is a different thing, right? Because that's out of your hands. But doing the art itself is an act of great worth, and the gift it gives to you. And yeah, you find that by being in integrity with yourself, and that's it. That's the moral responsibility.
So well put, Adam.
That's true.
Vonnegut really nailed it, because Warhol said, "Don't worry about what people think of your art. Just keep making it."
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. Like, how do you separate that? And Jean Cocteau really nailed it. He says, when you make your first piece of art and your family's there and your teacher and your peers are there and they all go, "Well, it was really good, but you colored a little outside the line." Whatever they criticize you, use that and exploit it for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
And that again is like, oh my God, because you want to hear the criticism, but at the same time. So here's a couple.
It's a very vulnerable place to be, really.
It's vulnerable. That's the word. Yeah. So here's a couple little tangents to that. Mike Kelly said, making art is making your problems other people's problems. What do you
Okay.
think of that?
Well, that's not my take. I think it's transmutation of your problems.
Right.
I think it's taking a problem often, right? I mean, every work of art is different, but often we're working through something and turning it into something of value, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you you take the shit of life and make it fertilizer and grow something beautiful out of it.
Really well put. Yeah.
So hopefully then you're turning your pain into an offering for others. And I think that's why a lot of times, pieces of art, and especially this happens in storytelling, is uh is like can be a lifeline for people because they realize, oh, I'm not alone in this challenge.
Yeah.
And so you can explore it honestly. Um, and you got through it enough so that you could turn it into a meaningful piece of work. Then it's giving an example for others and showing them they're not alone and that it can be turned into something beautiful. So
That's really good, because here's the other one that's similar, but I'm just curious your take. I don't even know what it means, but it's the poet Fanny Howe. The
okay.
point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't. I'm glad you laughed. By the way, Adam, you're like Kelly Carlin,
Oh, yeah.
George's daughter.
Yeah.
Every question I asked, she would laugh, and then she would take a deep breath, and then she would answer. And
Yeah.
then you sort of, because you center yourself, you're a good listener. You're actually listening. So I'm curious, because it's got a contradiction to it, but I don't quite understand it. The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't.
Yeah. Um, I think there is some sort of brilliance in there. I guess for one, it is containing the paradox that is constant. Where we are, that's the whole thing. There is no absolute truth, and so the delight of an artistic piece that resonates for you, that alone is a reason to live, right? But that piece of art might be exploring something that's depressing. It might be exploring something that it would otherwise beat you up, but the way that it's approaching it and turning it into something that's worthy of sharing, now you're finding a value in life. So I mean, I think it's niche, kind of what she's saying, in that
Yeah.
it's not true of every piece of art, right? But
Yeah.
but uh but it kind of dances, right? Wasn't it the Dadaists who were just talking about how, like, it's just sort of like nothing means anything, right? It's just sort of like we can just kind of do anything, and there's value in freeing ourselves up in
Yeah.
that. So somehow, like, when you embrace the meaninglessness of it all, you might stumble into the meaningfulness of it.
It's a really good point. It's back to McLuhan: carefully make plans, then do the opposite. That takes courage, but it's like, yeah, all my friends in my group say, "Oh, suffering is what Buddha says is the life condition," and Bob Dylan says suffering this and suffering that. I goes, bullshit. I don't think suffering is it. I think joy and love of life is what's important. But I understand what they're saying. So I have this whole file on suffering questions, but it kind of fits. One of them fits here because
Uh-huh.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's Tom Waits said,
Mhm.
I like beautiful melodies telling me terrible things. The world is a hellish place, and bad writing is destroying the quality of our suffering. Now that's that is so funny. It's very Waitian, but it is like, well, he's implying that suffering has a quality. Well,
Yeah.
suffering doesn't have a quality, it's bad. But
Yeah.
you're saying, well, no, you can flip it into, you can flip this trauma into a breakdown into a breakthrough. But any
Yeah.
thoughts that bad writing is destroying the quality of this our suffering?
I mean, there's a lot going on in that one. That's so that is so great and such a match for Tom Waits.
Yeah,
His sound, for that matter, because his grizzled beauty. I
yeah.
I and ultimately he's knocking bad writing.
He's knocking bad writing, and that's no, you gotta have some bad writing.
Yeah, but you gotta have some. Well, it's inevitable along the way to good writing. But he's kind of it on some level a critique of all the shitty lyrics and music out there.
Yeah,
And and he's a great poet, Tom Waits.
yeah,
And I think this is quite poetic. Again, it kind of comes back to what I was saying about the shit of life being the fertilizer. It's like the
yeah,
suffering is that, right?
yeah,
When we can actually receive the suffering and do with it what it's meant for. There's you ever hear of I'm sure you've probably heard of Osho, the somewhat controversial Indian guru guy. He also was called Rajneesh. But they made a documentary about his sort of whatever you want to call it, his cult or whatever in Oregon in the 70s. That's not why I bring him up, because he did say many wise things, and one of them was that the purpose of pain was so that you would pay attention.
yeah.
And
That's
uh
good.
and I as much as I have struggled, and not too long ago had a very painful emotional experience, uh but it was like, so I would address the issue at hand.
Yeah,
Because when it really hurts, you're like, I gotta figure this out.
yeah,
And that does provoke a deeper dive, and that's putting the suffering to work, and then that changes your relationship to it. And I to kind of go back to the Buddha thing. It's like, he's kind of saying, like, yeah, there's suffering, like, you have to deal with your suffering, accept that's like step one. You
yeah,
accept your suffering, and then once you accept suffering, then you can start to experience the joy of living much more
yeah,
fully. And to take it to Tom Waits, he's saying, like, I'm working with the suffering to make something beautiful. People who sort of like, they're just sort of scratching the surface of suffering. You scratch the surface, that's shitty writing. It's shitty.
yeah,
You're not doing the work. You're creating bullshit love songs that don't really mean anything, that people relate to this level. But we all need to get much deeper if we want to actually have a purposeful human experience and resolve some of these multitudes of issues that we have.
yeah. Again, really well put, Adam, because purpose of pain is to pay attention. I'm going to use that tomorrow in my salon. That is a good one, because
All right.
it's the main thing McLuhan and everybody who reads Finnegan's Wake learn is you got to how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How do
Yeah.
you turn a rejection into a redirection?
Yeah,
So
man.
it's like you just get up, and it's redemption. You fall down, then you get back up. You fall down and get back up.
But
So
so easily said. But when you're in the thick of it, it's hard. It's
it's
hard.
really, yeah, easily said is right. Well, are
Yeah.
you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm more afraid of misused ideas.
I love that.
I think there's great old ideas, there's great new ideas,
Yeah,
but there's ideas that get abused and used for the wrong reasons. Those are my concerns.
really well put. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
uh Somehow I have a memory when I was maybe 3 or 4. I remember being on a we lived in a red house that had a green rug, and I remember somehow my brothers had tied, I don't know if the socks were on my hands or on my feet or both, but they were tied together such that I like had to crawl to chase after them. I was the youngest, and they had managed to to somehow tie some socks together, and I was crawling after them down the green carpeted hallway, and they found it very funny. And that's pretty much our relationship in a nutshell.
That's good. You found it funny, and you didn't. It wasn't. It traumatized me for the rest of my life. So
no, not that one. I have other things were trauma.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
It is a blessing for sure.
Yeah.
I think because even when it hurts, even when it is a trauma, the memory gives us an opportunity to delve into it,
Yeah.
to work through it, to address that. And of course, if it's a positive memory, that's a great gift as well.
Yeah.
So, and I don't have the best memory. If I don't have the worst memory, I remember many things from my childhood, but gosh, the more when memories sort of return. This is also a wonderful thing about talking to people you grew up with. I'm visiting where I'm from, right?
Yeah.
I've been seeing family, and I actually have been making a conscious effort to discuss shared experiences from our past because
Yeah.
it widens the perspective and kind of fills out memories in a fascinating way. So yeah, definitely a blessing.
80-90% of people go, it's a blessing. This woman yesterday goes, is it more a curse or more a blessing? She goes, curse. And I says, you have your certainty, and I understand that some people can say that. A lot of people go like this. Oh, it's a blessing. Well, it can be a curse, And of course, it is it's a stupid to, but again, back to Finnegan's Wake, he says in the book, remember to forget.
Yeah, well, there is value in that. You
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
yeah. No, and I was talking to my brother about this, and he was talking about how his nature is to be very forward looking. He just doesn't dwell, and it is kind of his superpower in a way.
Yeah.
But can you do that to a fault? I think so. I think there's value in also taking a look back and kind of observing some of those ripples, even that ripple into your present. But it also depends. Everyone's different. But the notion of like it's like that film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen it. Great film. They're trying to like erase the memory of a painful experience, a painful relationship, certain traumas, and they're still rippling through, so it's like you can't you can't erase it. It's still there, no matter, obviously that's a fictitious sort of premise, but people trying to forget, and people do forget, right? As a coping mechanism, people do forget trauma, and that kind of feeds into the remember to forget. There is some value to that to a certain point. You want to only revisit it when you can revisit it, in a constructive way, in a way that allows you
Healing way, yeah.
it can be
Way.
for sure.
Kaufman's a great screenwriter and a really good filmmaker. We needed him then when he came about. So tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was the impact?
I in my immediate family, actually who all of my family members growing up had an impact, but I wouldn't kind of it's sort of a collective impact. I wouldn't necessarily highlight like, it's like my mother, for example, was always, my mom's from the Midwest and has this kind of just consistency to continue to show up and kind of stay uh, regulated, right?
Yeah.
And I think that had a big impact on me, um, and mostly good ways, but in times, actually, at times negative in the sense of allowing myself to experience quote unquote negative emotions. I think that maybe there was a flip side to that, right?
Yeah.
But if I were to say the family member who's had the greatest impact on me, it's actually my son,
Yeah.
because when he came around, somewhat unexpectedly, it just called forth a part of myself that was not as active, and talk about having a sense of purpose get awakened. I had to get over certain things about myself in order to take care of him and properly, and be a good parent. And that was really showed me. I mean, he is a gift that keeps on giving, and the kind of it also, in addition to like the great, honor to be a good parent and sort of help him become himself, right? That taught me more about also what was missing. I think one of my guidelines was like, oh, let me give what I didn't get,
Yes.
and make sure that I offer that to him. And then also made me come up against the things where it's like, because you can only offer the like you hit kind of stopping points. You can only offer what you have the capacity to give yourself,
Yeah.
and so coming that is sobering at times, like, oh, like I can't quite give as much as I'd like at this point, right? And so that would sort of encourage deeper work for myself. And I will shout out my dad too. My dad was a bit more of a tortured artist type, but he had a wonderfully explorative and creative mind, and really took strong stances as to what was right and wrong in the world, and expressed himself powerfully in those certain ways, in a manner that was a gift, right? He gave me like I think my brother said this, like he kind of introduced us to like a very empowered agnosticism of like, hey, I don't know, but it's like I feel that there is something greater at work than just me, but I don't know what it is, right? Well, it was a great gift for me because I intrinsically have respect for different approaches spiritually, and I have a respect for the fact that there are intelligence beyond my own, and it helps me. It helps me listen on that level when covering the terrain of that sort of delicate ground of people's deeper beliefs.
Again, really well put. You articulated all three of them well. I really got a picture painted by you with the words you chose, like each one of the three. Now,
Cool.
the same question, Adam, outside the immediate family, someone who had an impact, and what was that impact?
Mm. Mm. I am, as I contemplate that question, I'm looking at the different characters who who's who I've crossed paths with, and I have dear friends that you kind of take turns being mentors with, but I don't have like a super clear, like, this person was a major mentor for me, right? I
Yeah.
have more, again, I guess the answer is similar in that I have kind of an amalgamation,
Yeah.
but I will shout out a guy because something he said. I've quoted him quoting Fred Astaire many times in my life. It's certainly a paraphrase, but it was one that was powerful for me, and I almost said it to you 10-15 minutes ago. um so I studied acting in New York for a while, and there was my most important teacher was a gentleman named Gene Frankel, who is like a real, like, man of the theater.
Yeah.
Great director. He directed great plays. He directed Jean Genet's The Black, starring what's the great actor with the great booming voice who did Darth Vader's voice and such. Oh man. Well,
Yeah.
everybody knows James Earl Jones. James Earl
James
Jones.
Earl Jones. Yeah.
And among many other great productions. Anyways, Gene was so real, and gave that gift. But one of the things he used to criticize acting, we would do our work, and a lot of times he'd be like, the best, your best moment in the scene was when you forgot your line, and he's like,
Yeah.
then you were working on a real problem. But his Fred Astaire, paraphrase quote was that Fred Astaire said something like, I used to dance. I danced all the time, and I would make a lot of mistakes. And he's like, I kept dancing, and I kept making more and more mistakes, and until eventually the mistakes became my style.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that just always stuck with me. Gene said that to me, in the late '90s. So, we're approaching 30 years, 26, 27 years ago. And it just really landed for me, and I really appreciate him for certain things that he imparted, and that notion of allowing for your mistakes and realizing that your genius is encoded in them. You did say something in our conversation here that was very much the same theme. So I like to acknowledge Gene. Now Gene also said things I didn't agree with, right? uh, and in fact, I these days my focus creatively is more writing than acting, but I've kind of uh, dipped in and out in terms of focus levels on acting throughout my life, and more recently, I I took a class that my nephew was in LA with this guy named John Simmons, and I was half going to the class to make sure my young nephew was in a good class. I was sort of like, is this guy legit? But I found that indeed he was. He's a good, pound for pound, a good teacher. Definitely also occasionally would have angles that I was like, I don't agree with. But he called me out. And this is again, not that, not a couple years ago. Um, and he called me out because I had a scene where the character was in an intense emotional place, and he said to me, and I was having some trouble with it, and John said to me, he goes, I think that you, Adam, the person, has judged these emotional places to be bad, and therefore you don't let yourself go there. And so when a character needs to go there, you have trouble getting there. And like you can't embody that fully. And I realized it was still true, right? Like I didn't think so, right? But it was a really important moment to realize, oh man, you're still I'm still trying to work around difficult emotion.
Yeah.
And that's the value of art and performance art, is that it challenges you to come up against some of these more difficult uh, aspects of being a human being, and realizing, oh, if I want to do justice to this, I need to be willing to go into the murky parts. So for whatever reason, I'm thinking of the acting teachers who challenged me in a certain kind of way to meet my more difficult aspects of self. Um, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to both of them for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Adam, what it is a delight is that you can articulate it. The people can understand these things with their mentors, but not necessarily articulate it. And it's not like you have to, but you can, knowing you're a writer as well, you're putting it into words to communicate it to me. So that
Right.
really came across well. And that's the Fred Astaire thing is totally James Joyce. He said mistakes are portals to discovery.
Mm,
Coleman
mm.
Hawkins, great saxophonist, says mistakes are meaning you're trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean that was really beautiful how what Fred Astaire says. It also even reminds me of Bob Fosse. He says I think it's Sam Wasson's book about Bob. He says Bob Fosse's dancers were kind of trying to dance like they were dancers. you know so it's like Buster Keaton turn a stumble into a dance.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
by the way, I did once I knew that quote, and then occasionally would see a Fred Astaire film. You realize he does a lot of stuff where he's kind of looks off balance.
Off balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you realize, oh, that is his style, and he
Yeah.
probably initially processed it as like, oh, I kind of lost it.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's just a real invitation to realize that our stumbles are our opportunities for creation, and
Yeah.
that, there's I think I saw it on Instagram, but it's what's the gentleman he wrote I'm Not Your Negro? He wrote If Beale Street Could Talk.
James Baldwin.
James Baldwin. James
Yeah.
Baldwin said, uh, you know, your suffering is not does not isolate you from humanity. It's your bridge to humanity.
It's bridge. Yeah.
And that was beautiful. And just again, a reminder that, you know, whether you call it a mistake or a stumble or a rock bottom, that actually is the most fertile soil for creation.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that speaks to a lot of the people who we've been referencing, the artists and such, who and even the Buddha, right? It's like you kind of start from that vulnerable, raw place, and if you create from there, then you really offer something that can be of service to others and yourself in its creation.
Yeah, really, Adam. And we reached 90 minutes, and I really want to insist we do a part 2. And it can be like 4, 5, 6 months down the line, or even after your film festival, because I really want to get into, you know, I think one of your main callings is being a writer, because that's how you have become an MC, because you're sort of like writing on the spot.
Yeah, sure, writing.
You know?
Yeah.
And I love it, because I've done that MCing kind of thing too. When a guy came up to me and says, "Will you MC this political meeting?" I was like, "What?" And it made me like just jump in the deep water. And then, you know, 40 years of putting on events, and I really, you know, that's what really stood out when I came to your festival, was what a great job you were doing MCing.
Thank you.
Because the setup is like, I hate when film festivals, any film screening, like you said, you know, putting it into context with a couple comments before the film is good. But when the filmmaker gets up there and goes, "I hope you enjoy my film," it's like, don't tell me how to think. But it's like the casual kind of comfortable way you want to welcome them into the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, yeah, it's almost like the filmmaker shouldn't be the one put in that position to introduce it. Really, it should be the MC. It is just its own function, and hopefully, you know, we create a space where people are very present, and then and certainly sometimes giving, I do screenings as well, like older movies, and I love to give people little tidbits of information that hopefully then enhances their experience.
Exactly, it helps. And you know, I saw John Joe's films at USC, and he's made like 100 films, and they're really radically experimental. And as soon as the film ended, this woman goes, "Why'd you make us suffer through that?" And he's on the stage with the MC, and David James is really great. He goes, "We're going to get to the questions from the audience soon. Let me talk to John a little." John was like, oh, immediately going, "Right on. I love it. That's what I want to do. Fuck your shit up," you know.
But yeah, you need that kind of interface. Like, you're not going to just, like, it is amazing. This is one of the reasons I love a film festival, ours and all, you know, essentially all film festivals, is it's amazing to have the filmmakers there to discuss it. But you don't want to just leave them to do it, right? It's like having Bob Dylan talk about his song. You're not going to get shit. But if you have someone to kind of who acts as like an intermediary between the audience and the artist, it really helps.
Yeah, when you had Vinny for Sound of Pain, it was like, I don't want to see a documentary have the subject interviewed. I want the filmmaker to be interviewed, because we just saw 90 minutes on the subject. But it was good because Vinny just sat there and like, I am somebody. It made him cry. It was just like so touching for him and so important that you said, "Oh no, come on up," you know, and he was present, because Josh was very articulate too. And, you know, that I want to go into writing, MCing, film, curating. Like that's a huge thing. My film festival just reached its 35th year, and yours is in its 20th year. And it's like, that's the thing where you create a community and a commonality to share a around an art form, I think that's what's important. So we'll plan that down the road. And if we can, and Adam, I really appreciate your time and energy here. I truly learned a lot and was enlightened immensely.
Oh, thank you, Gerry. I appreciate the invitation. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you. You're such a expert conversationalist and instigator of thought-provoking premises. So
That's a good cut line. Can I use that? No, I'm gonna hit the end broadcast button now, Adam. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
And
Gerry.
even though I'm gonna hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank you so much, Adam.
My pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate you, sir.
Okay.
Cheers.